I think this is a godsend. I don't want to put her on the spot. I think it's a God moment, because in the lifetime that I have been driving the courts crazy over for Kathy's sake stuff, and if you look me up, you'll see a lot of stuff that I've been able by the grace of God to do without a lawyer, because I learned from lawyers. But God blessed me to have 2 lawyers step in and try to help. One was a law firm, and one happened to be her dad. How amazing is that? Amen? Amen. Connecting the dots. Is that right? Amen. That's right. And the wonderful Joanna back there who's been instrumental used by God. At this time, I'm going to sit down and actually let you come forth and share whatever is the leader in your heart to do that. This is Kathleen Kirshner, attorney of law. Amen?
Hi there.
Hello.
I'm Kathleen. This is what it's like. I don't have prepared remarks. Reverend Morris asked me to do this, and so I just felt that I just wanted to speak from my heart about my experiences. So I'm a former prosecutor, an assistant state's attorney for Anne Arundel County. My husband, Richard, who came with me tonight, is former federal agent for the Pentagon Force Protection Agency. And I come from a family of lawyers, and after a short time of being an assistant state's attorney for Anne Arundel County, I lost a lot of faith in the truthfulness of the police, and it was one of the deciding factors of why I left the office. I didn't like the politics of the office. I was told by my then deputy assistant state's attorney that we are on the side of the police. And I challenged her and I said, I thought we were on the side of the truth. And when I stood up against some cases, not a lot, where I felt that the police had gone too far, I was reprimanded. Not officially, nothing in my file, but I was certainly called up to the office with the deputies. And now, after I left the state's attorney's office, I worked with my father, who, as Reverend Morris said, he's now retired. For about a year, and then I started my own practice. Probably 80% of my practice are African American clients. A lot of my clients are have addiction. They're not all nice people. They're not here in church. You know, they're not at home with their prayer cards. I mean, I'm not saying that these are perfect, wonderful people. They're not. Okay, they're not. But that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the Constitution, and that's why I do what I do. And what matters to me is that if you're going to wear the white hat and you're a police officer, then you better have the right to wear that white hat, because otherwise there's no difference between you and the people that you are attempting to stop, search. So one of the reasons that Reverend Morris asked me to speak is because I had shared with her my experience with particularly northern Anne Arundel County, but also the city of Annapolis, of the rampant abuse of police power as it comes to stop, frisk, and strip search on the side of the road. So there are attorneys in the room, but in order to stop it's usually a car, but it's not always. You have to have reasonable articulable suspicion that a crime has been committed, and that can just be your taillight is out, right? That's a crime, and the police can stop you for it, and they can issue you a citation. It takes approximately 90 seconds to issue a computerized ticket. That's it. So what the police do then is the Supreme Court has said that they can have a pretextual stop. And this is where the problem starts, and I understand the reason for it. But the pretextual stop is, we're going to stop you legitimately. You've done something wrong, you're speeding, or you're in a red light, or your taillight's out. And then they come up to the car and they start trying to develop probable cause. This is called a WREN stop, WHREN. So that opportunity to obtain probable cause to extend that stop is very brief. It has to be immediate, it has to be apparent. So the reason that they were sitting down, my educated guess, down in Eastport, as the Reverend was telling us, for an hour, is because they were trying to get the drug dog. So Chris Tucker, who is one of the only canine officers over in Annapolis, probably was somewhere else. He gets called in by the county to do drug dog sweeps, so they don't have a lot of drug dogs. So I have zero. I know that's what they were doing. I know, and I know that officer that's referenced in that story that you were talking about that reissued the warrant. I see him all the. I work with these guys all the time. So what I'm seeing, however, is that there's a rampant problem, particularly in northern Anne Arundel County, but not exclusively in Anne Arundel County. First of all, Anne Arundel County police refuse to get a body-worn camera. I, as a police officer, would not do that job if I wasn't protected by a body-worn camera. It's as much a protection as it is evidence. Problems with the body-worn camera for NAACP as well as the ACLU. This is what happens. State's attorney gets a body-worn camera. Because of the police rights, what they do, before they disclose it to us, they screen the body-worn camera and they edit it. So, and this is a common thing, and the problem is that they should not be editable. I'm sorry if the guy is calling his wife and saying, yeah, honey, I'm gonna get the milk, or he has to use the restroom. I mean, so, okay. So, I mean, as a responsible attorney, I'm not gonna embarrass that guy and be like, oh yeah, use the restroom, but that's what happens. So they withhold them from us and they edit them. So what I do is I issue my own subpoena, and I issue it directly to the police department, and I get the unedited version. And I think I'm allowed to do it because the judges have said, you know where to get it, Kirshner, go get it. So I do. So I have a habit of issuing my own subpoenas to the police departments to get what I need. So, and very often body-worn camera footage is withheld generally, and it's not entirely clear to me. The other issue with the body-worn camera footage, besides the fact that it can be edited, which it should not be, and it can be edited by the state within the state's attorney's office, is that we have a case right now in the city of Annapolis where it's discretionary to turn it on, turn it off. So when you have a police officer who's supposedly responding to a scene because there's a man with a gun, but what he does is he harasses my 12-year-old client and assaults him, that's a problem. And what did he do? The guy that had the gun, he didn't have his body-worn camera off, so I say that's a bunch of bullshit. I'm sorry, I should have said that here, I apologize, God forgive me. But, sorry, Lord. But if you felt that you were approaching someone that had a gun, the first thing you're going to do is activate that body-worn camera, which he didn't. And the body-worn camera will chime constantly. Every 10 seconds it'll go doo-doo-doo-doo, and it's a reminder to the police officers so you're not talking about getting the milk or yelling at your wife or admonishing your kids. But look, police officers are human, and they have those conversations too, okay? By and large, I find that a majority of the police officers are good people. And I find that a majority of the bad police officers do what they do because they've convinced themselves that they have a good reason. They know better. It's a Machiavellian kind of approach. I know there are drugs in this car. I'm going to score by getting these drugs or these guns or whatever. And so it doesn't matter the reason why, as long as I can get what I came for. So in northern Anne Arundel County, we have the Gun and Drug Task Force. So they're a special unit. We see the same, I'm not going to mention their names, but there's about 7-8 guys. They will, so it's not really Western County, so it's sort of abuts Brooklyn Park, or Brooklyn. It includes Pioneer City. It includes Freetown. I have a lot of clients from Freetown. Because if you represent someone and you do a good job, you're going to call my lawyer. She's great. So I end up having a lot of these clients. Same thing from the city of Annapolis. I have a lot of clients. I've done cases all the way up through murder. So what they do is they do these pretextual stops. They're usually undercover. They don't have body-worn camera. Oh, and by the way, the guys that they worked with are the gun task force guys from the city who have now are under federal indictment. That's where they were trained by those guys. So we had a case once where the Anne Arundel County Police executed search warrant on behalf of the Baltimore City Police, and that whole group of guys that you heard about that got indicted. So this is what they do. So they go into a drug house. They hit the house. There's probably about $200,000 in cash in the house. They steal the cash, they steal the guns, and they left about $5 grand. And they said, oh, you can use that for the lawyers. So the Baltimore City Police came, hit the house first, but they didn't have the assistance of Anne Arundel County, so legally they weren't permitted to do that because they didn't have an Anne Arundel County warrant and they were out of their jurisdiction. There were no exigent circumstances, so I was not inside screaming, help, he's killing me. So they ripped off the drug dealers, we see it all the time. But what's my client gonna do? Hey, Kathleen, here's the deal. They stole 80 grand from me. What am I gonna do? Yeah, so my drug dealing client is really upset that you stole $80,000 of his proceeds. Can we have that back? It doesn't work that way, right? But then they divvy it up. We know this is going on. So that group, just after that happened, we complained. Anne Arundel County lied. Anne Arundel County said, oh no, we got there at the same time. And then a few months later, it turned out they were all busted. The feds picked them up. That client was eventually very quietly released from prison. So that was a good thing that came out of it. So the biggest problem that I'm seeing, the thing that's concerning me the most in terms of dehumanizing people, and it is true that it is directed towards the African American community. It is also directed to people who are poor. It's directed to the white trash or the white rednecks. If you look like a heroin addict, if you're in a hoopta car, if think of all the cliches. If you don't have power, they're gonna mess with you. That's the way it is. And by and large, the people that they're dealing with happen to be African American. They're powerless, but not all. Okay, so this is I think they're drunk on power. I think they are racist, but I think it's more than that. It's deeper than that. I think we do ourselves a disservice if we stop at the door of race and we don't understand and go through the door of abuse of power. You know what I'm saying? Because it affects. When I was a teenager, I was grabbed by a police officer by the throat. Grabbed me, held me, because we were having a party at our community beach, right? Because we were Annapolitans, and I turned and there was the lacrosse team walking over because I'm screaming, you're hurting me, and he let me go. I'm not African American, I'm a middle class white girl. I was 16, a ballerina, and he grabbed me by the throat. Nothing ever happened to that guy. My dad called and said, what the heck are you doing? So, and I'm a victim of that. It's one of the reasons I became an attorney. So I don't think it's just race, but I think race is a huge part of it. Okay, that's my point. I don't want to take away from that, and I hope it's not appearing that way. So what's happening now, to get to my sort of long point, because it's so much in my head. So what they're doing is, when they do these red stops and they get into the cars, then they're searching people. In order to conduct a strip search, you do have to have probable cause. They have secreted drugs or something that can be secreted into the human body. That person has to be transported unless there's an exigent circumstance. They can think there's a gun. That's called a Terry pat down. So they'll pat you down for weapons. They cannot go in your pockets. Like I have my key fob here. If it doesn't feel like a gun or it doesn't feel like a knife, you don't get to pull that out, okay? And if it happens to have cocaine inside of it, which it does not, but if it did, you don't get to go into my key fob, right? That's what Terry stands for. So you can pat down officer safety, of course. Make sure someone's not armed. That's fine. What they're doing is, I had a group of clients, 5 guys in a car, 4 were African American, 1 was like maybe half white, half Asian, right? Brown skin. They stopped them for not wearing a seatbelt. They came up on the guy actually had a seatbelt on, but it was tucked behind him, and the cop said, oh, you did have your seatbelt on. He's like, yeah, because he realized. They pulled him out of the car. 3 of the guys, they strip searched on the side of the road. You are not allowed to do that. They have to take them back to the station house and get the permission of a supervisor. And when I say strip search, I mean they are doing a body cavity check on the side of the road. 2 guys, they couldn't do it because, so the drug dealers wear multiple layers of clothing, and they do hide drugs in their crotches. So they couldn't undo all of these multiple layer of clothing quickly enough and get away with it on the side of the road up in northern Anne Arundel County. So they took those 2 guys back to the station house and they strip searched them. Those 2 guys did have drugs on them. The guys on the side of the road did not have drugs on them. And then they found baby aspirin in the car and charged them all with distribution. Needless to say, we got the cases dismissed. Here's the problem. Those guys just want to put it behind them. And if you file that complaint prior to going to trial, guess what happens? It's like the crime of the century. Because what's happening is we're not getting proper disclosure from the state's attorney's office when there is a violation of the police officer's code of conduct, right? They're supposed to disclose that information if they've lied, if there's some moral turpitude, if they planted evidence. That's discoverable information that we're entitled to for cross-examination. We're not getting it. If we do, it's rare. So we have to kind of keep our list so you sort of know. Oh, and by the way, it's always the same guys that are doing this, right? So that information, I can assure you, was not then disclosed to me later. And then we had one other case that sticks out of my mind that's just very recent. We had two guys that were accused of dealing, and they were in the Severn area. And what the officer did was he said, oh, we stopped them the day or a few days before he had applied for a search warrant. And he had, for his probable cause, he said, we stopped them a few days before, we got their names, and we confirmed that it was these two individuals. Here was the problem. He identified the two wrong guys, but he supported it with a traffic stop. So that was very easy to get to. Now that guy absolutely lied in an application for a search warrant. If we know we can get the police for lying, guess what happens? The state's attorney's office drops it right away. Why? Because if you win on a Frank's hearing and you win that the police lied and you can establish that lie, then that is disclosable. And they have to tell all subsequent defense counsel that this officer was determined as a matter of law by the court that these officers lied. Unfortunately, what happens a lot of times is the judges will find some other technicality rather than a true Frank's issue and still grant us so that the officers aren't determined by law to have lied, if that all makes sense. There is a real problem in Anne Arundel County. There's a huge problem in the city of Annapolis. At least they're wearing their body worns. At least now they're turning them on now. And we're catching them lying all the time on those body worns. All the time. So there are good police out there, but without these accountability boards, it is absolutely astonishing to me that they hide behind the police Bill of Rights and not disclose ostensibly Brady material. I mean, that's not fair. That's not right, and it should stop. If you drove a bus and you had multiple bus accidents, wouldn't the public have a right to know if you sued them because you were the fifth bus accident? The bus driver, it was a negligent bus driver. Don't you have a right to know that? I mean, that to me is absolutely insane. So those are my remarks. I know I was kind of all over the place. I hope you enjoyed them, and thank you very much. I know it's late, so let everyone go. Oh, yes, you have a question in the more rural areas.
So the only other thing that I wanted to ask was I remember in Annapolis where they ripped a guy's underwear to do a body search. It was videotaped, so it was obviously out in the street.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been other situations where they've done similar things too. Why do you think there's not more outrage in the community to that kind of stuff?
That's a great question. I mean, we certainly feel it as defense counsel, and I have my list of police officers. As soon as I see their name in a report, I know they're lying. In my heart, I know I will find it. I know that something's untrue. So it's a great.
When she shared with me this story, it really bothered me because I don't know if you really get it. It's stopping African Americans and getting them out of the car in the dark and telling them to drop their pants and searching their body cavities. I woke up sobbing. I'm telling you. And then what I did, don't forget your question. When she shared that with me, I literally, because I'm from Mead Village. I mean, we lived in Mead Village. Mead Village was a step up when we went to Mead Village to live. And so I walked into a business over there, and I just walked straight up. I was feeling that energy, and I said, can you tell me, what do you know? I said, that's 3 minutes. So what do you know about them telling people to drop their pants and yada, yada, yada? And the guy says to me, one of the men says to me, he says, ma'am, do you really want to know how really bad it really is? And I was like, wow, God, I can't disclose what he talked about because when we hear this, in order for these things to be actionable, these young people have to come forward. And what he shared with me, though, he says, if you've already got a charge on you, or someone stopped you and you're scared to death, and someone mistreats you, what do you think a young person's going to do? They're going to pull their pants up, they're going to walk away, they're not going to say anything. Because first of all, nobody's listening, and then sometimes it doesn't come to light because somebody doesn't ask the right question. Sometimes we're so spiritual trying to save people and do them in this area and do this, that nobody ever walks up and says, did anybody ever do something sexually or whatever incorrectly to you? So that, in other words, we don't have that particular conversation, so these things don't come out. And that is factual.
I just want to say one thing, just addressing, and I think, I think things are very multifaceted. The police do what they do because, by and large, the people they're harassing are criminals, okay? I mean, they are, right? So when you know that you're harassing a population group that's not predisposed to tell on you for a variety of reasons, that's the culture of the lifestyle they're living, but also it puts what they're doing out there. So the police know this, and they capitalize on that fear and that silence, right? But then what happens is, and then that bad police conduct bubbles up to the next level of people who aren't doing anything wrong, like running tags, right? That's where that's not only, it's dangerous on multi levels, but I think the reason that it becomes entrenched within the police department is because it starts with, these police thinking, well, I'm doing the right thing. I'm the right one. And why do people continue to make bad choices, right? They rationalize, well, that they're worser than me. I'm better than they are. And I think that's where it starts, and poor training, of course, but then it takes hold, and then it just,